Tonight, the swearing in.
So help you God.
I do, so help me God.
All 100 senators signing an oath ahead of the historic second impeachment trial of now former President Trump, set to begin February 9th, after House Democrats marched their article of impeachment to the Senate, accusing Mr. Trump of inciting the insurrection in the same building where they'll prosecute their case. President Biden now endorsing the trial, telling CNN overnight it has to happen, even as he acknowledges he does not believe Democrats will get the 17 Republican votes they need to convict Mr. Trump. And tonight, an early blow to Democrats' hopes of a conviction. Just 5 Republicans voting with them that an impeachment trial of a former president is constitutional. 45 Republicans, led by Rand Paul and including Mitch McConnell, arguing it's not.
Democrats are wasting the nation's time on a partisan vendetta against a man no longer in office. It's almost as if they have no ability to exist except in opposition to Donald Trump.
Democrats firing back.
It is clearly and certainly constitutional to hold a trial for a former official.
Still, President Biden is pressing ahead with his agenda, tonight unveiling new executive orders aimed at improving racial equity in America, addressing racially discriminatory federal housing policies, ending the federal use of private prisons, and combating xenophobia against Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders who've increasingly been the target of harassment during the pandemic.
I'm not promising we can end it tomorrow, but I promise you we're going to continue to make progress to eliminate systemic racism.
And late tonight, news that the Democratic senator who was appointed to preside over the impeachment trial is now in the hospital. Vermont's Patrick Leahy, his office says he was not feeling well this evening and is being evaluated right now, Lester, as a precaution.
Well, Peter, we certainly wish him well. We learned today the president spoke with Vladimir Putin today. I suspect they had a lot to chat about.
Yeah, that's right. The first time the two men have spoken since President Biden took office. The White House says that President Biden raised several issues in that call, including that massive hack of U.S. government agencies and companies that the U.S. blames on Russia, reports of Russia placing bounties on U.S. soldiers in Afghanistan, as well as interference in the 2020 U.S. election and the poisoning of Russia's opposition leader, Alexei Navalny. On President Biden's plate tomorrow, he's expected to sign a number of executive actions, specifically on climate change, including making it a national security priority, as well as convening a climate summit of world leaders on Earth Day 2021.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.